Hello, and welcome to our conversation with our leaders from Global Cleveland, leaders who have been board chairs, who have been on our board, and who've been supporters of our mission community as we strengthen our city and our region by welcoming the world. Today, as we mark the 15th anniversary of Global Cleveland, we reflect on the people and the moments and the leaders who have helped shape this journey. The conversations with past and current board chairs helps us bring our story to life, understand the vision and mission, leadership and impact that continue to define our work today. We are joined today by someone who is known throughout the community, Mr. Joe Marinucci, who has served in various roles of service for Governor Dick Celeste, for Mayor White, both in economic development, as a leader in helping Playhouse Square become what it is today, as the executive director, CEO of Downtown Cleveland Alliance and making our downtown vibrant, and most recently as someone who served as the executive director of the Little Italy Board, the Little Italy organization, a neighborhood that Joe knows well because it is where he grew up. He was our recent past chair, and we're just so delighted that Joe is able to join us today for this conversation to talk about his beliefs and why he thinks the work that Global Cleveland does is important. So we'll start with saying hello, Joe.
Good
Welcome to
morning.
this. Thank you. Good morning. What first drew you to the work of Global Cleveland, knowing that you were in a leadership role in our region as our downtown chair when the organization was beginning? And what was it that made you want to join in the capacity as a board person and then eventually as our board chair?
Joe, I think initially you had mentioned in my introduction that I was president and CEO of Downtown Cleveland Alliance, now Downtown Cleveland Inc. And in that role, one of the things that we recognized early on when we created that organization back in 2005, and you were instrumental, by the way, in helping us when you served on Cleveland City Council in achieving that new platform, the Special Improvement District. But we realized that creating more housing opportunities and increasing the population of downtown Cleveland was very important. So when I first became involved with Global Cleveland, I recognized that uh, uh, immigrants, people who are coming to Cleveland were looking for experiences that were very similar to the experiences that they may have left, and many of them have come from urban settings. So, from my perspective, it was a natural for us to think in terms of how do we support Global Cleveland, who are bringing more people into this community, and recognizing that those individuals, those families, are looking for experiences very similar to the experiences that they left. So for us, it was, for me personally, it was a way for me to kind of engage a housing strategy and recognizing that immigrants could be a key component of that strategy.
Thanks, Joe. Do you remember? You have to because you were so much a part of it when the organization first began. The announcements were made. There seemed to be just a lot of excitement. And you've got a personal story that resonates because of your own lived experience. How did you feel that, this idea that was becoming real also, had, I think, maybe some echoes in terms of your own life and your own personal and professional development?
Well, Joe, obviously, I've talked a little bit about my professional interest, if you will, in terms of Downtown Cleveland Alliance. On a personal basis, the work of Global Cleveland resonated very early with me in terms of the vision and the mission that kind of brought the organization together, 15 years ago. And my personal experience is I am an immigrant. I migrated to Cleveland from Italy in 1956. I was 2.5 years old with my parents. We ended up here in Cleveland because of family relationships. And as you noted, I grew up in an Italian enclave, Little Italy, on Cleveland's east side. So when I was growing up, I spoke an Italian dialect, Abruzzese. I kind of understood what it was like, and I understood my parents' experience because we came to this country really with nothing. My mom and dad actually had my mom had twins 6 months after we came, so here we were, a family of five, and really came to a foreign country, and we were in an environment where it was a welcoming experience. You recall back then the Alta House Settlement House was in place, very very famous settlement house in Little Italy that was actually founded by John Rockefeller, to give you some historical perspective. But again, it was the fact that recognizing that without that support, we probably would not have succeeded here. And I think what Global Cleveland's mission is to recognize not only do we need to attract and welcome newcomers to the community, we need to ensure that there are systems in place to help us make those individuals, make those families comfortable, create an environment where they can succeed, where they can create business opportunities, where they can create a home for them and their families here in Cleveland. So, in some ways, that mission mirrored my personal experience in terms of my family coming to Cleveland, and again, not having anything other than a family here that helped us support us, but in a long-term basis, there were organizations in place, and I think Global Cleveland recognized that need and brought that need back to the forefront of the community.
Thank you, Joe. When you look at the work that Global Cleveland was involved in, and under your leadership as board chair, your participation as a board member, when did you see something that the organization that you led had an impact? When did you see, that this, ideal, whatever you want to call it, actually mattered to people in the community? And how did that affect you in terms of your own leadership as being somebody who led this organization as our chair?
Well, I think Joe, from my experience in both on the board and being in the chair role, was recognizing that as more, if you recall a few years ago when I served as board chair, we were at a point where a number of Afghan refugees were coming into the community. Shortly after that, the war in Ukraine brought a significant number of refugees to the community. And again, when I saw the fact that we were able to work with those newcomers, to work and welcome them in a proactive way, and connect them to the service organizations that might provide direct services, to me that kind of galvanized, why Global Cleveland is so important, and again to create that singular voice, and create that opportunity for organizations to rally around, for the community to rally around, and allow us to again be more at the forefront. And I think over the last few years, we've come to recognize that when you look at population growth opportunities, immigrants are the basis of population growth. And even if you look at Cleveland historically, we obviously have lost population as a community and as a region. But when you peel the onion back a little bit, you see that our outmigration from the existing residents is actually fairly consistent with most metropolitan areas. Where we had failed historically was importing new individuals into the community. And when you look at the numbers, what became very, very clear is that immigration really was the key, not only for Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, but for the entire state of Ohio. So those types of strategies from an economic development perspective are very, very important. But on a human perspective, it's also vitally important. And I think Global Cleveland does a great job of balancing, again, that humanistic need that a newcomer needs, their family needs, to the economic realization that these individuals, they're coming here, they're filling jobs, they're entrepreneurial, they're creating businesses, and again, they bring great added benefit to the community.
Thank you, Joe. In the intro, we talked a little bit about your many roles in your life of service and your work record. You've worked for the state of Ohio in economic development. You've worked for the city of Cleveland. You were, integral to where Playhouse Square is, and certainly downtown Cleveland. Everybody knows that. Why do you think that the work now of Global Cleveland and the mission is so important to the region? You talked a little bit about population growth, but do you think that there's anything in terms of the timing and the moment we're in right now that this means something, obviously for the city of Cleveland, but also for all of Northeast Ohio?
Well, Joe, again, when we look at the opportunities, we know that if we create an environment, and again, Global Cleveland is critical to creating that environment and creating the platforms that people who are potentially coming to the community can plug into. We know it works. And again, whether it's connecting someone to housing, whether it's connecting someone to a social service agency, whether it's connecting them to the refugee agencies that we work with on a day-to-day basis, we know that resonates, and we know that creates a opportunity for that individual to experience the welcoming of Cleveland, but more importantly, to also build upon our platform. We haven't really talked about, for example, the long, rich ethnic history of Cleveland, the diverse population that we have here. I experienced it obviously in growing up in the enclave in Little Italy, but it's that type of welcoming in an environment where we welcome newcomers and embrace them. And again, I think that really is the key from my perspective in terms of Global Cleveland's work. And having said that, we are in an environment where obviously immigration is a challenging issue at the national level. We recognize that right now that there's a lot of consternation surrounding the issue, but we also recognize that there are people that continue to come, and our role is to continue to serve those people and to serve them in ways that obviously are consistent with the policies that we currently exist in. But I think the goal here is to make sure that we continue to embrace our mission and continue to build on the platform that we've created. And I think as long as we do that, even with some of the national dialogue surrounding this issue, I think we can continue to succeed.
Thank you, Joe. We've listed a few of the different organizations, which you've led. Obviously, we're talking to you about your leadership role at Global Cleveland. You're someone who works with a lot of newer leaders, a lot of leaders that are coming in now in their own generation. What guidance would you share with them in terms of your experience at Global Cleveland if you were coaching the leaders of today and tomorrow? What are some of the lessons that you've learned, Joe, that you feel, you would want to have had maybe when you were beginning, but lessons that you learned just through your own lived experience?
Well, Joe, I think from my perspective, all of us joke about Cleveland being a big, small town. And in many ways, I think that's true. We have all of the attributes, and we have the population density to be a big city. But at the same time, Cleveland is a relationship town. And I think as I've mentored young professionals or people that I meet in the marketplace, people that, for example, in our Global Rising program, what I say to them is reach out to people, because I think what you'll find is Clevelanders will respond. And again, it's that connectivity, that building those relationships, that network that you can create, that will help you both personally and professionally. And I think sometimes, especially if you're if you're an immigrant or a newcomer to a community, you're a little hesitant. You're shy, and I was probably a shy young person as well. But I think the key is to put that aside and recognize that the more people you can interact with, the more people you can network with, the more opportunities you're going to create, and bridges that you'll create that ultimately can lead to obviously job opportunities or entrepreneurial opportunities. As we've discussed, we know that immigrants are entrepreneurial in nature. You don't come halfway around the world to a place like Cleveland without having an entrepreneurial and a creative spirit. And again, the more we can nurture that creative spirit through networking and mentoring, again, the stronger the fabric of the system that we create. And again, I think Global Rising is a great example of how we do that organizationally. And I believe now we actually have a formal alumni association of graduates through that program,
Yes.
which is now what, Joe, 7, 8 years old. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a great example of how young professionals not only can benefit from the work of Global Cleveland and being incorporated into our work, but also then in the future, how they can work together on a parallel basis to what the services and opportunities that we can provide them.
Great. Joe, you're a person who sees the world as it is, but you have a hopeful persona. And I'm wondering, what is it that gives you the greatest sense of optimism for the future of this organization? And if you were to say, you know, make this your goal, make this difference in this way, how would you look at the next few years? And obviously, do you feel optimistic about it? What do you feel optimistic about? And what would you say, hey guys, this is what we really need to focus on as we, continue in the work for the next 15 years?
Well, Joe, I look at it as you know, Global Cleveland, like all organizations, have evolved and matured. And really, when we look at Global Cleveland today, it's embracing so many aspects of a newcomer's life and initiative, and again, the organizations that make up the support system for those folks. That Global Cleveland essentially has become the focal point for the community. And from a branding perspective, from a marketing perspective, I think the organization has done a great job of positioning itself in a way that it is collaborative in nature. It's not necessarily, we're the only actor in town that can help you, but we are, in essence, a platform where people can come to, and we work with them to identify what other organizations can come to the table. And to me, that collaboration has really been the evolutionary key over the last number of years. And when I look forward, I think that collaboration that we can build upon and accelerate in years to come, I think is going to be the key. Because again, when you think of labor, when you think of job opportunities, we can't do it ourselves from a Global Cleveland perspective. We need to, for example, rely on the business community, the talent attraction efforts of those communities. We need to rely on the universities in Northeast Ohio and identifying potential international students in their on their campuses, and how do we keep them here in Cleveland? How do we create job opportunities for them? So it's an interactive system, and I think what we've learned over the last 15 years is that building on an interactivity, building on that collaboration is really the focus, that really the ability for us to succeed. And really, I think when we look into the future, will be the foundation that we build upon.
Thank you, Joe. Final question here. In a sentence or a phrase, or however you want to define it, what does Global Cleveland mean to you personally?
On a personal basis, I think, Joe, again, going back to my own background, and I think I've said this to you before, early in my professional career, I probably didn't talk a lot about my immigrant background. Um, I had the opportunity and the blessing to be in many different roles. I had the opportunity to interact with many people, whether they were residents, whether they were neighborhood activists, whether they were heads of corporations. And as I got more and more involved with Global Cleveland, I recognized that I needed to give a voice to my history. And in many ways, over the last years that I've been very active working with you, working with the organization, I've recognized that I need to share that story a little bit more often. And on a personal basis, my involvement with Global Cleveland has allowed me to, in essence, celebrate my history in a way that maybe for my professional life, it was there, but I didn't celebrate it in a way that I'm doing it now on a personal basis. Because again, I think my work in Global Cleveland has made me recognize that historical experience that I had, it has many ways created the type of individual that I am now. And hopefully by sharing it, I can hopefully help others in the community to also feel comfortable about their immigrant roots and their experiences coming to Cleveland.
Wow. That was profound. Thank you, Joe. Sincerely. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your personal and professional life with the region in many ways, and specifically with Global Cleveland. Your leadership has shaped Global Cleveland's past, present, and will continue to shape our future and our influence. We are eternally grateful to you for your leadership and your voice in telling this story, and for your ongoing personal and professional commitment to advancing our mission. We have been speaking with Mr. Joe Marinucci, immediate past chair of Global Cleveland, and someone whose resume is a mile long and 10 miles deep in terms of how much he means to the entire community here in Northeast Ohio. Thank you, Joe Marinucci. Happy 15th anniversary, and thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Joe, and happy 50th anniversary to the entire Global Cleveland family.
Thank you.
Thanks.